Hey, what's up, y'all? Y'all good? I hope so. Y'all, let's go ahead and get into episode 2 of the Reckoning documentary that 50 Cent put out about Puff, right? Okay, so it opens up with Pac getting popped and robbed at Puffy's studio. Of course, Puffy said that he nor Big had anything to do with that situation, and Pac has always said that he felt like Puff and Big did have something to do with that. I personally don't think Big had anything to do with it. I feel like it was all Puff. That's just my opinion. It's all alleged. They talk about Craig Mack and Big being two of the greatest acts on Bad Boy in '95. Kirk said one day at the office, Puff kept buzzing his phone, so he thought it was something important. So he grabbed his pad, he grabbed his pen, he went to his office, opened the door, only to see Puff sitting there getting fellatio. And he like, so this why you called me down here? He said for some reason he wanted me to see that, and that's just so corny. But Kirk said people co-signed Puff's mess so much that he didn't see a problem with that, and they co-signed his mess because it brought in money. Eric Sermon says that Bad Boy was the thing back then. There were back-to-back platinum artists. Everybody wanted to get with Puffy and work with him. Now he's the exception to the rule. Like, he didn't have any rules. So Kirk says one day Sean walks in his office with a baseball bat and wanted him to sign over his 25% stake in the company because of a business deal he needed to take care of. He said he didn't want to do it, but he felt like his life was being threatened, and Puff said that he was going to pay him back. But in 2003, Kirk sued Diddy, claiming a breach of contract, fraud, and other issues related to his former stake in Bad Boy. But of course, the case was dismissed because the court says the claims were filed too late. Then we meet Roxanne Johnson, who is Craig Mack's ex-girlfriend. She said she thought Puff was cool at first, but then they started noticing some things when it came to him. And even though Craig had won a Grammy, he was broke. Kirk said when it came to Andre, the only money that the artist had ever seen was the first advance, and Puff picked up on it. But he made it even tougher. It was like a shell game. He did that to every artist. He owned the studio, so the artist would be paying him to use the studio. Even if he was in the video, he paid himself. The artist did not receive the proper money for their royalties. Roxanne said one day Craig asked Puff for some money because he was struggling, and Puff pulled out this big knot of money and gave that man $100. Kirk feels like when it came to Puff, he was very jealous of his artists because he didn't have that talent. He could dance, but he wasn't a rapper or a singer. He just used other methods to get to where he felt he needed to be. Then enters Suge Knight. Suge was about the money, but he didn't want to be in the limelight. And also, Suge was Al B. Sure's bodyguard. Al said Suge knew talent and he knew business. Of course, Puffy admired Death Row Records and wanted to emulate them. And Puff and Suge used to hang out. They used to kick it with each other. Death Row was first, and then there was Bad Boy. But even with the mess, Suge took care of his artists better than Puff, according to Kirk. At the Source Awards in '95 in New York, that's where we get the famous Suge Knight statement: if you don't want to worry about the executive producer being all up in the videos, y'all know how I go. And then after that, Diddy got up there talking about he a positive black man and was trying to bring everybody together. It was all a front. Kirk says that Puff processes everything differently and he remembers every slight towards him. So then we see Mark Carey, who was one of the Bad Boy artists, not the actor. He says that he worked the door at the Bad Boy Club. Suge stopped by looking for Puff because Puff always tried to go after guys' side chicks, and he wanted Kirk to take $50,000 out of the overhead, buy this chick a diamond necklace to try and woo her just because she was Suge's side chick. So one night at the club, there was an off-duty officer at the club, and as they were walking out, it was Jake, Suge's homeboy, Suge, Puff, and a bunch of other folks outside. A man walks up, stands beside Jake, turns and looks at Suge while popping Jake all at the same time. He popped the man 5 times. And then Suge put Puff in a headlock because if dude gonna start firing this way, he gonna hit you, bro. He ain't hitting me. So Puff was like, it's gonna be alright. Everything gonna be okay. And Suge's like, what? Wait, what do you mean it's gonna be alright? Everything gonna be okay? Nah, I tell your mama it's gonna be alright. And that's what started the East Coast West Coast beef. A lot of people thought it was Pac getting popped at Diddy's studio or the Hit 'Em Up song Pac put out, but it was this situation right here. So then we get into that situation that happened at the studio and how Suge met up with Pac while he was in prison. Pac signed with Death Row. His All Eyes on Me album went straight to #1. And of course, Diddy didn't like that. So he tried his best to make Big mad when it came to Pac. He stayed in Biggie's ear with some mess about Pac. Then we got the Hit 'Em Up song, and Sean, he kept pressuring Big. He was like, you gotta say something, you gotta respond, you gotta respond. Big didn't want to. He just wanted to focus on his project. But then Big put out Who Popped Ya. That song alone should have had Big suspicious. It should have made him question, why did Puff want him to put that song out so bad? Then we get introduced to D1, who is a former Mansfield Gangster Crip. He said that he was friends with Sean and Big, and whenever they hung out with their friends, if you got beef with Puff and Big, you got beef with us. Then they show an interview that Puff did where he was asked if he had hired Chris for protection, and Puff was like, that would be extremely unintelligent to do something like that. Then we get introduced to Zip, who was a drug lord from Harlem. Puff said that Zip could give them protection. So we get to the Mike Tyson fight in Vegas, and that's where Pac gets into it with Orlando Anderson, who was a Southside Crip. He was the one who snatched the Death Row chain, and we know how that ended. R.I.P. to Pac. They showed an interview where Puff was asked if he knew who was responsible for the unaliving of Pac, and he said that he didn't. But for me, it be Puffy's body language, all that twitching, them facial expressions, them little smirks. It just make me feel like he be lying. Then we hear from Craig Caden, the former detective on the case. He was recruited to work a task force for a cold case, and it was Pac's. They showed a clip where Suge said that he would never snitch about who unalived Pac, even if he knew who did it. The detective learns through his investigation that Orlando was Keefy D's nephew. Keefy D explained in a proffer a year prior to Pac's unaliving that he had several conversations with Puff, and his association with the Southside Crips came by way of Zip. Keefy D said after an event that Puff had given them tickets to, there were like 40 Crips along with Andre, Puff, and Zip in the hotel room, and Puff said that he would give them anything for Pac and Suge. Now this is all according to Keefy D, and Keefy D being who he is, he was like, oh, that's light work. And the fight was that night. It all went down, and the way he described it was almost like a scene out of Boys in the Hood. You know, when Doughboy them, they riding around looking for the dudes who took out Ricky, and after a while it was like they weren't gonna find them, but then all of a sudden they saw them sitting outside of a burger spot. Yeah, his recollection of that night sounded like that. Kirk says that a few days before Pac was taken out, Sean requested that they rent cars and drivers, but he didn't understand it at that time, but till this day it still stands out in his mind. So Keefy D said that he knew that Pac and Suge were supposed to be at Club 662. They waited around for a while, but they never showed up, so they was like, hey, let's go get some drinks. And when they came up on Harmon at Las Vegas Boulevard, that's when they saw Suge and Pac. They had got pulled over by the police because their music was too loud. They see some ladies standing around screaming their name, and that's when they saw them. Lando got the piece out of the secret compartment in the car, leaned over, and let it off. And Keefy said that he saw some lead hit Suge in the head too, and he thought he was gone. He said they went and parked the car, put that thing on the tire, and left. And while they were standing at the crosswalk on Las Vegas Boulevard, they saw the ambulance pull up. So the next day they get back to LA. Zip tells them to meet up with him. Puff calls to see if that was them that handled the business with Pac. Zip said that he was going to get their money. However, they were never compensated for the hit. $500K was supposed to be forwarded to Zip, and Zip was going to give it to them, but he never sent it to Keefy D. And eventually Zip passed away from cancer, and Orlando was popped in 98. So Keefy D, he is set to stand trial in next year for the murder of Pac, and now he's claiming that everything he said in that proffer in that interview with the detectives was said under duress. Then you see this scene with Puff, Christian, and some other guys getting in the elevator, and Puff said what goes up must come down, and what goes down must go up. Mark says in 99 they were working on a song called Muscle Game, and Puff was talking in the beginning of the song, and he was like, man, what is this talking about? But what Puff said was, no more Mr. Nice Guy. F with me, I'll drop $1 million on your head, erase you and your whole family, gonna start making you ninjas disappear. Which is crazy as heck, because that was the amount of the hit. It's like a statement of admission, allegedly. In 97, which was 6 months after Pac's unaliving, Sean decides that it was a good idea to take Big to LA to work on the finishing touches of his Life After Death album, which Kirk says was not the title of the album at that time. Now, mind you, they had been warned not to step foot back in the West Coast. Big didn't want to go, but Puff talked them into it. They went to the Soul Train Awards. They were booed when they performed. They were booed when they presented an award. The next day, Big and Kirk were supposed to go to London. He called Big to see what was the holdup because they needed to get to the airport. They had to go. Puff told Kirk to cancel the flight because Big wasn't going. All because he wanted to do a party on enemy territory. And they showed an interview where Big said that he'd been having dreams where he felt like somebody wanted to unalive him. He said he felt paranoid. He just didn't feel right. Later that night, they were having a party. D1 saw Big just moving around by himself, and he was like, bro, you can't be walking around here without no protection. They went on with the party. He look around. He don't see Big no more. Then you get the video footage where the people are outside and you hear the pops go off, and that's when they lit up Big's SUV. Then you see this interview where Puff is talking about he was following Big's lead about doing a peace tour. How, Puff? How? When Big didn't even want to go. He didn't want to do any of that. Kirk said that Puff is lying about Big wanting to go to LA. He feels like Puff ushered Big to his unaliving. The detective said that Puff was a hindrance to the investigation. He was stonewalling people from talking, and the detective feels like Sean knew if inroads were made in Biggie's case, those roads will also lead to Pac, which could possibly lead back to him. Kirk said that whenever anything was asked about Big, Puff made it about himself. Then he decides to put together the biggest funeral for Big. But once he started seeing that price, he said, nah, Big is going to have to pay for this. He made the funeral a recoupable charge in death. Big paid for his own funeral. And he walking around doing all them interviews talking about how sad he was and he missed his best friend. Baby, just evil and full of it. Puff said that Big was his only friend for a long time, and that people think that he has a lot of friends, but he doesn't think that he makes a really good friend. I don't think he even know how to be a friend. Kirk said before Big was unalived, he had an opportunity to be on the cover of Rolling Stones magazine. All of the elements were being delivered, and Puff told Kirk to pull that cover because his album was coming out and he felt like he deserved that cover. And then on top of that, Big was negotiating his contract, and they gave him everything he asked for in that contract at that time. But after he passed, Puff wanted Kirk to change the agreement so that it would be more favorable for Bad Boy, and his family wouldn't even have to know because Big had already signed the agreement. Kirk refused, and 90 days later, Puff fired him. Like, bro, you out of here. Then they showed Puff's performance of Every Step You Take with Sting, and they showed him on the cover of Rolling Stones. Kirk says there are several horror stories. Some people speak up, some people don't. Aubrey O'Day says violence was a normal part of living in Sean's world. And that was the end of episode 2. Get down in the comments. Tell me what you think about this whole situation. And I'll be back for episode 3. And I'll talk to y'all later.